Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Tom Jones. Hello there.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
So good to have you here.
Thank you.
If you'll forgive me a bit of a pun, it is unusual for a celebrity to start out a memoir the way yours started. You open your story with a career low.
Yeah.
You've set this at a suburban theater in 1983 where you're kind of giving people what they want. Why did you start your story there?
Well, I thought it was a good place to start, rather than start at the beginning of as far back as I can remember.
But why was it a good place to start?
I wanted people to know what had become of me, at a certain point in the 80s, early 80s.
Because a lot of big stars would shy away from that sort of
Yeah.
less glamorous point
Sure.
in their career.
I mean, I could have started at the beginning, with It's Not Unusual, and have said that it was great all the way up until today. But there was the thing that happened to me was I went into Las Vegas in the late 60s, and that sort of, when you do 2 shows a night for a month straight, no days off, it starts to affect your voice. You don't sing as well. So then you become an entertainer more, because you've got to talk a lot, in order to save your voice. So, I mean, that was all right, because Elvis Presley was there and Frank Sinatra was there, Sammy Davis, and some big entertainers. But that started me on a different path. I didn't start out like that. And then throughout the 70s, I mean, I was playing arenas all over. But then into the 80s, I was playing lesser places. It went from 20,000 and then to 10,000 and then 5 and then...
You call that period in the book, you call it touring your reputation. You were a heritage act before your time.
Yes, exactly. I was like an oldie but goodie. I was doing the greatest hits and throwing in a few newer songs that other people had recorded, just to try and keep up to date. But I wasn't recording them myself. And a lot of people, young people, would be coming into the show, sometimes with their parents, and say, "My God, why don't you record this stuff?" If I was doing a George Michael song or, whoever was popular at the time, I would be doing those songs as well as my hits. And so the younger people were saying, "Well, why don't you record new stuff? What is this all about?" And Europeans coming to America and seeing me say, "We thought you're not recording anymore," because they weren't putting my records out in Europe, the ones that I was getting some country hits with in the States.
Well, I want to get to when you did start to get into covers and sort of taking those, perhaps the cues from those younger people asking you for covers. But first, tell me a little bit about, because even no matter where you were performing, in these middling venues or the big concert halls, I mean, you loved performing.
Oh, sure.
Where did that start with for you? That wanting to be looked at and to be enjoyed?
When I was a kid, it was the thing that came most natural to me was to get up and sing, and that was my knockout punch, if you like. It was like when you're a boxer, you have this thing if you have a knockout punch. And so when I was in school, for instance, people they're either academically smart, which I wasn't, or you're a sportsman. You're either a great cricketer or a soccer player or a rugby player, like that. But for me, it was always music. It was always singing.
And how did that go over in your family? I mean, in the place where you grew up, was that an acceptable thing?
Oh,
to
definitely.
Want to be
I mean, we were encouraged, because in South Wales, well, Wales in general, Wales is known as a land of song. Most people sing in Wales. So when you're a child, you're encouraged to sing. You get up, and I loved it. I mean, most children, when they're asked to sing, they'll go, "Oh, do I have to?" And like that. Me, if they didn't ask me, I was pulling on my mother's skirt saying, "Mom, when are they going to ask me to sing?" It was like that.
So you noticed, I mean, your voice had an effect on people from the very first times you got up to sing. What did you see in people's reaction? I mean, what does that look like from the stage?
Joy. I could tell that I could make people laugh or cry or, feel what I was putting into that song. And I saw that from other singers, because there were some great singers in Wales, in workmen's clubs and pubs. So I would watch these singers. There was a guy that used to sing My Mother's Eyes. And when he sang it, you would cry. And I thought, this guy gets, I mean, it's great. And I want that. I want to be able to do that.
You wanted to be able to draw emotions out of people.
Yeah,
and
because I was putting emotion into it, and I think if you can channel your personality through your talent, whatever that may be, and with me it's always music, but sportsmen as well, sports people I should say, they get their personality into their craft, and that's what you should try to do, because some people say, oh, well, I can sing, but when they sing, they become somebody else, or they feel inhibited in some way. They can't get their personality through there. But with me, it came pretty natural.
Well, and you had a natural connection because you have an uncanny ability to know what a crowd wants and to give them what they want. How do you know that?
Well, you've got to be a little careful of that, though, because sometimes you can get a little carried away with it. You can't do that. You've got to be able to, everything in moderation, and try and take people through a musical journey. This is what I try to do with a stage show. I plan my stage show so that normally I would start with an up-tempo song, or a medium-tempo song, and sort of take them through a musical journey, rather than do too many ballads in a row or too many up-tempos in a row. You've got to be able to, from one song into the next, it has to be a journey, and I've learned that, and it's a lot better like that.
I want to go back to 1965. Your second song, It's Not Unusual, became a monster hit. When did you know that song was going to be big?
Well, I did the demo. I did the demonstration record for a girl called Sandy Shaw. And when I heard it back, I said, I have to have this song. This is my song. And my manager said, oh, because he wrote it. Gordon Mills and Les Reed wrote the song. And I said, Gordon said, I can write 1 million of those. And he never did, though. I said, you will not write 1 million of these songs. I know it. I can taste it. And so much so, I said, if I don't get this song, I'm going back to Wales, because we were in London at the time. And he said, oh, don't be so silly. I said, I'm telling you, this is it. I know it. And he thought I was going to get away with more of a rock and roll record, more rock. I mean, this was a pop song. But it had some, I tried to inject some blues into stuff. You know what I mean? The soul. Even though this was a straight pop song, I think I stuck some soul in there.
Well, watching you, I watched back through a lot of the videos of you in the 60s and 70s on YouTube. I highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't done that lately. It's good for the spirit. But you're an amazing dancer. I mean, you threw a lot of soul in just with the way you're moving around.
Yeah, well, I always liked to dance. And I used to go to dance halls, in the 50s. And I put the two together. I thought if I can, and you got to try and do that. When I was saying get your personality and try and get that into your singing. The same thing with movement. If you do if you have rhythm, and you have a natural ability to dance, then do it. And this now, of course, like with Justin Bieber and Justin Timberlake, they're choreographed now. But they have the ability to do it.
They've got the moves.
You see, so that's come even stronger than when I started,
Well, and your moves really had a pretty potent effect on a lot of your fans. I mean, things got a little crazy. Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel regret at picking up that first pair of panties?
Yeah. The problem, you see, when you sing in workingmen's clubs, like I did in South Wales, if anybody throws anything at you, you try to make something out of it. You try to turn it to your advantage.
Okay.
If somebody throws a beer bottle at you, you take a drink out of it. Say thanks a lot. And so it's like that. So when it was in the Copacabana in New York in 1968, and it was a supper club, and I was singing on the same. There wasn't a stage as such. The band was up on the stage, but the singer is on the floor where the tables are. Tables and chairs. So it was a supper club. So people were handing me table napkins to wipe my brow, because I used to perspire a lot, so I was moving a lot. And this woman actually stood up and took her underwear off and handed them to me. And I sort of wiped my brow and said, watch you don't catch cold, when I handed them back. So So you have to try to work with these things, you see. But it backfired on me because, after that, people would just bring them in handbags. You know what I mean? And there's Tom Jones, throw underwear at him. It's not like the initial thing was lost in the shuffle. And so therefore it came back to bite me in the. So then it became a joke, which the initial thing was very sexy, but it tended to lose its sexiness and became a joke. And
Indeed.
That's the problem.
It must have been weird, too, for you to go from those heady, zany, interactions and just with these fans pouring over you, the highs of being on stage, to go home to your quiet, you had a domestic life waiting for you at home. You had a wife and a son.
Yes.
That's a shift.
Well, not really, because it's all part and parcel of it, you see, because when I was saying about getting your personality into your songs, I didn't have to put up a front. I didn't become another character. It was me that was doing it. And my wife saw me do it in school. She saw me get up in front of people. She had come to birthday parties with me, when we were teenagers.
Yeah, because you've been together
weddings.
Since you were 15 or 16.
Yeah. Earlier than that, about 12, I think. Earlier than that, because I had TB when I was 12 till I was 14, and I was bedridden for 2 years in my house. And but we were sort of fancying one another. Before that, when you play kiss chase, my wife said, when you kiss me, it wasn't like the other boys kissing me. And I said, well, I felt the same way. So that was when we were about 10 or 11. So, so we've been together ever since. It's like that. And so she understands, she understands the attraction. Because she saw it when herself. And she said, I understand, but always remember that I am your wife,
Well, yeah, because your fame and your stardom was really, you were a hot star in the era of sex and excess, and you address that side of things periodically in the book. There have been some reviewers who want more details, not necessarily contrition about your own behavior, but more details about what went on and its impact on your family. How do you respond to those critics?
Well, no, the impact that happened was sometimes when my wife read one thing, especially, and she didn't like the fact that the world knew, that this thing had come out, and she was really ticked off by that. So, and told me so, and let me have it, So I stood there and took it physically. So she's like that. She's a strong woman, you know what I mean? And I like that in her. And she keeps my feet on the ground, and she always has done. And that's why we're still together today. So that's the only thing that I wanted to touch on. It was the effect that it had on her, which I didn't like. It wasn't something that I intended. So therefore, but like all married couples, we've gotten through that, and we're still together. If you love one another, and I think sense of humor is very important as well. If you can laugh at the same things and enjoy one another's company, I think, I don't think anybody would want to let that go. I don't, and she doesn't, and we're still there.
If you're just tuning in, this is Q. I'm Gill Deacon, and I'm talking to Sir Tom Jones about his memoir, Over the Top and Back Again. Tom, you've set the bar high ever since you had this early fame and acclaim for your hits. It's Not Unusual, as we played, but you always wanted to keep that level. You chased hits.
Yeah. Well, I thought, if you're a recording artist, you should be able to sell records, and that sort of went away because through the 70s I was still working on what I had done in the 60s. That carried me through the 70s. But when I got into the 80s, the 1980s, I thought I got to get back to recording. I got to do something here. Because I don't want to play these supper clubs all the time. I want to get back into the mainstream here. I want to get back on Top 40 radio. I want to do more TV shows. I want to do that. I want to compete, and I want to do new things. And that happened when I did Kiss, It was a brand new record with The Art of Noise. It was a hot record.
That was the sort of moment when you found, because I know you had asked your manager, "Where's my song? How do I do this?"
Yeah, Gordon Mills was my manager up until 1986. And, I was always saying, I want some. And he says, hey, you're doing great. What are you worried about? You're selling out these places, this and the other. So I got a little complacent. But he was flapping, he knew that they were not coming my way, and he was bothered about it.
And you had to find your song.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be, as you mentioned, your cover of the Prince song Kiss with the avant-garde group, The Art of Noise. You've been going strong since that hit, as I say, kind of give you, a second wind. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And you've done all kinds of covers since then, or versions, as you say, gospel,
versions.
blues.
My versions.
Yeah. Okay, so you've chosen songs that really suit your full vocal range. So 50 years in, tell me what makes a great song for Tom Jones?
It needs to be a meaningful song. It needs to be, because I've always loved lyrics. And so now I'm recording with Ethan Johns, who is a great producer. And this album that I've got out now is a third one that I've done with Ethan Johns. And when I met Ethan, he said, why don't we get back to the start? Because you started with It's Not Unusual, which was a big arrangement on that song. And then What's New Pussycat. And then The Green Green Grass of Foam. And then Delilah. They're all big records. So we said, why don't we strip it down? Why don't we go in with a rhythm section? Like I'm sure you were doing in Wales, which I was. I sang in these workingmen's clubs with basically a rhythm section. So I said, yeah, I'm up for that. Let's give it a go. So we went into the studio, and he said, well, we'll just start off. We could start off with just you and me. He said, I'll play guitar and you sing if you want. Or we can do it with the drummer and the bass player and myself. So that's what we did. And we came out with some really, really interesting stuff. And then the reviews I was getting on the first album, which was Praise and Blame, some reviewers said, I just heard Tom Jones for the first time. I can hear now. His personality's coming through. The essence of this man is coming through in these songs, which he hadn't heard before. So I thought, well, this is it. I don't need huge arrangements, to get my point across. So it was like starting over again.
It reminds me of a line in your memoir. You say, when I come through real, I'm quite hard to ignore.
Yes.
It's been such a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.